Hello, and welcome to Watch, Stay Awake, the channel in which we discuss all things Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's begin. Growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and quote unquote learning the truth, there was one scripture that really never made any sense to me. And a lot of it was because of how it was explained by Watchtower. Listen.
Please follow along on your screen as I read that prophetic verse. Jehovah said, "And I will put enmity between you," that's Satan, "and the woman," Jehovah's wife-like organization of spirit creatures, "and between your offspring," which includes the demon angels, "and her offspring," who ultimately proved to be Jesus Christ. "He will crush your head." Jesus will deal Satan a death blow, and you will strike him in the heel.
Now, mind you, this is not the first time that Watchtower has tried to explain Genesis 3:15, but I'm assuming that this time, this explanation sounded so ridiculous, they came out with a new explanation. Check this out. So here is the Watchtower Study Edition, July 2022. Study article 30 under the title An Ancient Prophecy That Affects You. Now here's their most recent explanation of what these terms mean. Okay, so here, the characters in the prophecy you see illustrated here, they basically have the same concept for the serpent and the woman. So they maintain that ideology. However, for the offspring of the woman, they say it's Jesus Christ and the 144,000 anointed co-rulers. Now keep in mind, Watchtower says that they meaning the governing body, are part of 144,000. And then here, the offspring of the serpent, they have wicked spirit creatures and, check this out, humans who resist Jehovah God and oppose his people, aka Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so now that we have the most recent position the Watchtower takes on this, let's do a deeper dive. Okay, so I'm going to actually look in the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures, and I'm actually going to read what they have in their Bible, okay, in their Bible translation. So here it is, Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Let me move my pen. And it says, "And I shall put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He will bruise you in the head, and you will bruise him in the heel." Right off the bat, you can see that Watchtower changed the word from seed, which was in their 1984 translation of the New World Translation, to the word offspring. They also changed the word from bruise to crush. So basically, Watchtower's rationale for changing words in the Bible translation that they used was because they felt like, oh, well, these countries that, currently are using a different version of the Bible, when we translate it, they don't understand what that word means, or there's no real equivalent. So they on their own decided, hey, let's just go in and just pick and choose words that we want to change so we can make it easier for people in other countries to understand. That's what they say, but there's always a reason for changing words, because when you change words, you also change context, which can change meaning, but that's a whole nother video. Okay, so going back to the New World's Translation, let's go back to verse 15, and it says, "And I," now Watchtower says I means Jehovah. Again, I'm using their translation, so of course I is always going to say Jehovah because that's what they changed it to say, but we'll skip past that. "Shall put enmity between you." Now Watchtower says the you is Satan, okay? So let's take a look at that. Now there's the letter J. There is some cross-reference scriptures. So the first scripture it gives us is Ezekiel 28:14 and Revelation 12:19. Let's see what that says. Okay, so here we are. We're in Ezekiel chapter 28. Now for context, before I read verse 14, let me read the other scriptures. So let's start in verse 11. It says, "And the word of Jehovah continued to occur to me, saying, Son of man, lift up a dirge concerning the," who? "King of Tyre. And you must say to him, This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah has said. You are sealing up a pattern full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. In Eden, the garden of God, you proved to be, Every precious stone was your covering: ruby, topaz, and jasper, chrysolite, onyx, and jade, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald, and of gold was the workmanship of your settings and your sockets in you. In the day of your being created, they were made ready. All right, so now we're going to read verse 14. You are the anointed cherub. All right, let me turn the page. In covering, and I have set you on the holy mountain of God, you proved to be. In the midst of fiery stones, you walked about. Now, if you are still following along with me, let's look at verse 15. And we're still in Ezekiel chapter 28. And it says, You were faultless in your ways from the day of your being created until unrighteousness was found in you. Because of the abundance of your sales goods, they filled the midst of you with violence, and you began to sin. And I shall put you as profane out of the mountain of God, and I shall destroy you, O cherub that is covering, from the midst of the fiery stones. Now, to be fair, there is a lot of controversy regarding this particular account, mainly because a lot of people are not on the same page as far as like who Ezekiel was actually talking to. Was he literally talking to the physical man, the king of Tyre? Was he talking to a demon possessed, or in this case, a Satan possessed king of Tyre? Was he talking to a shape shifted king of Tyre, where the king of Tyre was literally Satan himself? So that's kind of been up for debate. We what we do know is Watchtower tries to say, well, it was just his attitude. King of Tyre had the attitude of Satan. Well, we know that makes zero sense, because how in the world would that whole conversation make any sense to this king? Like talking about being a cherub and being in Eden and being made of these precious stones. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So we can automatically rule that out. In addition, I thought one thing was interesting is we've always thought that Satan was supposed to be from the spiritual world, or outside of this earthly realm, right? Or the worldly or heavenly. How is it that he's made of all these stones that come from the earth? That's a whole nother conversation. So I don't want to get too deep into that. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. But just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, let's look at the next scripture, Revelation. So the other cited scripture was Revelation 12:9, and it says, So down the great dragon was hurled, the original serpent, the one called devil and Satan, who was misleading the entire inhabited earth. He was hurled down to the earth, and his angels were hurled down with him. Now, reading Revelation, it seems pretty cut and dry, except when you go back to Genesis 3, but this time read verse 14, and this is where it gets kind of hairy. It says, and this again is from New World Translation, And Jehovah God proceeded to say to the serpent, Because you have done this thing, you are the cursed one out of all the domestic animals and of all the wild beasts of the field. Upon your belly you will go, and dust is what you will eat all the days of your life. So again, this brings up much debate again, because here it is, snakes typically are already on their belly. So was this serpent more like a lizard or some type of iguana, or maybe a small dinosaur, or maybe like a winged dragon or something? And was this a literal animal? Again, was Satan shape-shifting? Did he possess this beast, this animal? Or was there something else? So again, lots of controversy. Again, that's for another video. Now let's move on.
And the woman, Jehovah's wife-like organization of spirit creatures.
Now, clearly, if you read verse 16 of Genesis 3:15, you will see that here he's actually talking to the woman. And it says, To the woman, he said, I shall greatly increase the pain of your pregnancy. In birth pangs you will bring forth children, and your craving will be for your husband, and he will dominate you. Okay, so basically, they took the term the bride that Jesus used in the New Testament, and they tried to ascribe that now to God having a wife-like organization of spirit creatures. Like, I mean, I don't know. This is such a stretch, and it's just like, why? Like, why can't it be Eve? I mean, literally, she's standing right there. Why can't it just be Eve? Why does it have to be something so off off the wall and outlandish? But again, this is so typical of Watchtower. Now, if we go back to the New World's translation, if we look beside the word woman, it's the letter K. The letter K cross references to three scriptures. The first one is Isaiah 54:5. Second one is Galatians 4:26. And the last one is Revelation 12:1. These three scriptures all are talking about physical human beings that are women. It's not talking about any spirit force or creature or anything mythological. It's literally talking about women. So we can move on to the next point. Okay, now this is the part where it gets real stupid. Okay, so remember, we just said that the Watchtower says that this is not Eve. The woman is not Eve. It's not a literal woman, but it's a symbolic woman. And this symbolic woman or figurative woman symbolizes, what do they say? Jehovah's wife-like, faithful, anointed spirit creatures or something crazy like that, right? Okay. But yet they turn around and say the offspring of the woman is Jesus Christ and the 144,000. Make this make sense. Like, okay, now mind you, some people say, "Oh, this is prophetic." Okay, but these are literal people. Like, Jesus literally was on earth. Mary gave birth to this man, okay? Or this child. She gave birth to a child. He walked the earth. He slept, cried. He was a human being, okay? 144,000, 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, I mean, it's all through the Old Testament. We can name all these tribes. Now, mind you, Watchtower has ascribed themselves to be quote unquote spiritual Israel. We talked about this in another video, but Watchtower believes that the scripture in Revelation, I think it's verse 7, is not talking about Israel as far as the 144,000. They are actually 144,000, but again, I talked about that in a whole nother video. But do you see how that doesn't make sense? How we're talking about something prophetic but yet literal at the same time. Like, which is it? Like, make this make sense. All right, and I saved the best for last. Satan and his seed. Now, if you can remember at the beginning of this video, I showed you how Watchtower changed the word from seed to offspring. Now, the word sperm is actually derived from the Greek word sperma, which means seed. Keeping that in mind, let's listen to this governing body member helper.
The scriptures do not say specifically that the devil fathered any of the Nephilim. But Jesus' words at John 8:44 reveal the fact that the devil does indeed have children, figuratively speaking. He can't create humans, but he can influence people to reflect his characteristics. And that is what makes them his children.
Watchtower is known for playing on words, so let's take a moment to go back and analyze exactly what he's saying.
The scriptures do not say specifically that the devil fathered any of the Nephilim.
No, it doesn't say that. But what it does say in the scriptures is that these other quote unquote wicked spirit creatures were able to come down to the earth and mass reproduce with women and create these hybrid offspring of children. So if these other spirit creatures had the ability to procreate, why would that be so unfathomable or unconscionable for Satan to do that? After all, think about it. Is Satan not supposedly the originator of sin and wickedness? Does that not all come from him? So if he is the god of sexual perversion, why would he just be a bystander? Why would he not ever partake of having any type of relation with women? Just think about that.
But Jesus' words at John 8:44 reveal the fact that the devil does indeed have children, figuratively speaking.
Well, one might argue and say, well, really what he meant was whenever you're doing bad things, you're considered to be Satan's child or Satan's children or Satan's seed. Well, let's think about that then. So when you do good stuff, are you then considered God's child, or God's seed, or the woman's seed? And then if so, do you toggle back and forth when you're good one day and then bad the next? Like, how does that even work?
He can't create humans.
How do we know that for a fact? Unless Satan is not what we think he is, but a lot more powerful and greater. So powerful that no mortal human would be able to contain the dynamic energy that would come from the force of Satan. Because we've been told that he controls the other demons, it's unlikely that he would be lesser than any other spirit creature to the point where he's unable to produce. So there may be some other reason, but nevertheless, it's not stated, so it can't be implied or either suggested that he is unable to produce another human being or other spirit creature for that matter. Or is he trying to debunk the theory that Satan is actually the father of Cain, and when Cain married his sister, they thus spread this seed through Cain's lineage?
But he can influence people to reflect his characteristics, and that is what makes them his children.
Now, if you've ever told a lie, which is a characteristic of Satan, does that automatically mean that you are a child of Satan? Like, let's get real here. Like, what is he really trying to imply? If that was the case, then all of us would be considered a child of Satan, with the exception of maybe Enoch, maybe Noah. You know, I'm pulling straws here. I think it's safe to conclude at this point that Watchtower still has no idea what Genesis 3:15 really means. Thank you so much for staying till the end. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, as I will be adding a part 2 to this video. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.